This video is going to look at getting ServiceNow survey responses into rows instead of columns so that they can be easily exported and you can see all of the responses for an individual, or you can see the responses to all of the individual questions for each person who has responded. This video is really just a color commentary on an article I wrote on my blog here, which kind of outlines the steps on how to do this. So this video is just going to be me bumbling through this and hopefully giving some small insights as we go, and probably doing a lot of bumbling. So back to here, we have a test survey that I set up. And this survey has 8 questions and 8 questions of different varieties. So I got a few string questions, a multiple selection, a reference question, numeric scale, and a choice. So if you've ever done this before, well, if you're watching this video, you're probably trying to figure out how to do this, because when you go in here and you say, okay, well, I want to see the results, and just naturally you'd think, well, I want to see them in rows. Of course I want to see them in rows. But they are actually, if you go into the survey instances, and I go into like 07 here, I can see that the questions and the instance questions, which have the answers, are actually in rows. And to make matters worse, the multiple choice question actually has 3 rows, has 1 row for each of the responses that are in there. So not super intuitive. ServiceNow does provide this view responses in rows UI action. If I click on that, I can see this is what I was looking for, my responses in rows. But oh, wait a second, where the heck are my other questions? I have name, what do you like to eat, location, address, company, but there were 3 more questions, and those are nowhere to be found. So in the documentation, they do mention some limitations for that UI action, and in fact, the UI action is not visible when there are more than 5 active metrics. Also, if there are more than 100K responses, it's not active. The question is, the UI action is not visible, or if there are no responses. So that's why we're only seeing 5, because they have that limitation. So what I did is I went ahead and just changed this UI action. I took out the condition on it. I just stuck it in the comments. And so that made it visible, but that doesn't change the fact that when I click on it, you only can see the first 5 questions, the results from the first 5 questions. And actually what this is a database view that it creates on the fly for you. And because of the way the table is set up, there are only slots for 5 questions, basically, so the results of 5 questions. So you can only ever see 5 in here. So that's a really annoying limitation, and this would be awesome if you could just click on that and boom, you get all your results, but that's not the case. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making this video. The other problem with this is, as you can see, I think I have 5 instances. So yeah, 5 answers, but I have how many rows here? 9, because those multiple choice ones, remember we saw that before, where the multiple choice, each answer in the multiple choice got its own row. Well, where that same annoying thing comes back right here. So each one of these gets its own row. So this is pretty much useless for multiple choice. Okay, so how do we fix this, or how do we get around this? And again, this is outlined in here. Basically, our strategy is to create a table and then go and go through all the survey results and reshape those the responses to get them each instance in its own row. So first step, create the table. I went ahead and did that already. me get my tab straightened out here. There is a test survey results. I even gave it a little module. And here's the table I created. So we create a table and we give a column for each question in the survey. So company, date taken, how do you feel, employment type, etc. And all of the questions, I just make them strings because I don't care about reference and all that stuff. The only purpose of this table really is probably just to export it so that can be analyzed in some other tool. So really, I just want strings for everything. And then I give it two other columns. One is the assessment instance. So this is a reference so that I can reference back to my assessment instance, the actual instance of the response. And then the date taken, which is a handy one to have. And that comes from the assessment instance record. We just dump the date in there. Okay, so I create my table here. Then I want to map the questions from the survey instance. So let's go. I have to tell it which questions go to which column. So if I go back to my survey definition, and I go here, metric categories, and I drill down to get to the actual metrics or the actual questions. Here's the name field, here's the name question, and I say I'm going to grab the sys ID from here, copy sys ID, and then I'm going to fire up a notepad or a background script or somewhere, and I'm going to create this field map object where I put the question sysID here and the field name into the value, the field name that I want to dump it into. So I do that for each one of the field names. So if you just have a small survey with, I don't know, 10 or 15 questions, probably easier just to do that manually. If you have a large survey, I did this with something with like 67 questions. I think I just exported this table and I got it filtered down and exported it with the sysids. And then it was a little bit easier to create that, that object. So I'm mapping, again, my question sysids to the field that it wants to, that it's going to go to. Okay, then I do some copy pasta from the rest of the, I put this on my website here, all the code for the script. I fire up a background script, paste that code in there. And I need to change this line, which is line 16 for me, where we go and grab the assessment instances. I want to give it the metric type of my survey, right? So this is the test survey that I created, but you need to change this to be the sysid of your survey. So to get that, as you probably know, you go to your survey definition and do copy sysid. All right, so I will take you through what's going on here. But before I do that, let's just run the darn thing. So I will run the script, and you can see it inserted 5 records into my table. You test a survey instance. So let's go take a look at those. Right, I already created a module for it. So we go here, and here is my table. So you can see it dumps all of the values as strings, right? So I just typed garbage into most of these things. These 3 columns were string columns. This column was a choice column. It's going to give me the display value in a string. How do you feel? This was an actual numeric scale question, so that just gives me the number. The location, it gives me the display value. The title was another string field. And this, I think, is great. What do you like to eat? It's going to give me comma separated values in here. So we don't have that problem where, you know, I get 3 rows because I have 3 different answers here. It just puts it all in the same place. So, and then here's the date taken, right, which is just a simple date. And here is the assessment instance, the reference back to the survey sort of table that has the answers here in rows, the individual questions in rows. Um, okay, so that's how it works. So if you just want to get to this and do it, you can probably stop this video and start scripting away. Um, but now I'll give you what I hope to be is a brief explanation of what's going on in this script. If you have trouble falling asleep, you can just keep the video rolling, and that should really help you out. So, right, we started by creating the field map. Then we're going and grabbing all of the instances. So that is, if we go back to our survey definition, and we go to survey instances, right? These are all the responses. So it's going to this table, which is assessment instances, and it's saying, I'm saying, hey, give me all of them that correspond to my survey, right? To my metric type. This was the sysid that you need to put the sysid of your survey in here. Okay, now it's saying, okay, it's going to iterate through each one of those instances. And so the first thing it's going to do is fire up a new record for the table that we created to dump the results in, right? Then I'm going to set the values of the assessment instance and the date taken. You remember that was just these columns right here, right? So I'm saying, okay, well, just throw the assessment instance in here. This is helpful because sometimes you need to troubleshoot stuff in here, and you want to, know where did this come from? Well, it came from this assessment instance. And then the date taken is always useful for when you're doing analysis or whatever. Good to have that there. So it does that. Now it's going to go and find all of the assessment instance questions. So those are the values. If we go back to our survey definition, and then we drill down to an instance, right? And so each one of the questions has its own row. And actually for the multiple choice, like we saw, they have multiple rows for the answers. So the idea here is to take this and put this into one row instead of 10 like it is now. So I'm going and saying, okay, give me all those answers. Give me all those instance questions. Okay. And then I'm going to start iterating through those. And first thing I do is I look up the sysid of the question for this answer. So each one of these, let's take a simple one like address. So this is the answer record, the assessment instance question, or instance question, I should put the emphasis there. But the metric is the actual question. So I walk over to the metric, and I get the sysid of this metric, because that is how I say, oh, okay, well, the sysid of address, and I go here, right here with this field map, it goes up here and says, oh, okay, that sysid, which is this one here, that corresponds to the uAddress field, right? So if I'm down here, my field name, so that's where I'm saying, okay, well, the field name here is uAddress, because that's what corresponds with this, with that sysid in the field map. Now, I'm going and I have to figure out, well, what kind of field is this? Because Depending on what kind of field it is, the answer, or what kind of question it is, I should say, the answer is in a different place. So the way I do that is I dot walk over to the, again, I'm in the instance question. This is the answer, if you will. And I go over to I say address. Okay, well, what kind of question is this? It's address. And if we go into that record, the data type gives us what kind of question it is. So this is a string. Gotta keep my tab straight here. This is a string. So I have some if statements here. If, else. So if it's reference, no, it's not reference. Else if it's string, oh yeah, it's string. Okay, so let's do this block. If it's string, then the field value is going to equal to this instance question to the string value. This is an easy one. Okay, not this. Right, we go back here. The answer is in this string value. It's in the record itself, no problem, simple. So I say, okay, the field value is that. Okay, now we're done with that. So then we go down and we result GR, which is our target table, survey results. We set the value, the field name, which we got from here, remember, back up on, we looked it up on the field map right here on line 36. We got the field name and then the field value, which we got down here on line 46. And we're done with that one. So string is an easy one. Date works the exact same way. It just takes the date and then does the display value. Because remember, the date, even the date, is just a string value in the table. Now, you could make that a date field if you wanted to. I was kind of lazy and didn't because, well, maybe not lazy, because my primary purpose was just exporting and was getting it out of here. And that's probably the reason why you're going to want to put it into a table like this or get it into rows like this because you want to export it. So I just make dates strings because it doesn't make sense to go through all the work to make it a glide date. Okay, let's take one that is a little more complicated, which is a reference field. Or a reference question. So if we go back to that instance, and I'm gonna have to, yeah, here we go. All right, this one, and right, 007, okay. And right, the reference one was location, and I can't remember if yeah, I did answer that. So the answer is not in the string value field, but in the reference ID field, right? We can see this down here. Now we also have to know what the table is, and right, because this is the sys ID, so we know that that's the answer, but what table does this belong to? So we can do that by dot walking because we do specify the question here, right? So we do the same thing. We go to the question, go to the question or the metric definition, and in the metric definition, we know that it's a data type reference, and it gives us the reference table location. So if we flip over to the script, we say that, okay, I go to the metric or the question to figure out the data type is reference, okay. Reference table, again, I just dot walk over there. Question GR metric reference table. Then I can just do a glide record to that table, which is the location table, and I do a get to go get the value. And then I am outputting field value to the display value and writing it right here, right? And yeah, setting it here, okay? That's reference. So we looked at a reference, string, and date. Now let's look at the most fun one, which is multiple checkbox. So multiple checkbox is set up, and we looked at this actually. Let's see if I can get back there without, keeps bringing me back there. Okay, this one and oh 07. And so remember, we looked at this. This is the one that gives us a row for each one of the answers in there. So basically what we have to do is append what is in here. So if I go in here, the value it gives me is 3. So I have to do a bunch of gymnastics if I remember correctly. And okay, so what I'm doing here is, and this is my final else, which is actually probably not the best. I should probably explicitly state multiple choice. Um, yeah, I should probably explicitly state that, but I didn't. So if it's multiple choice, then I am using this function, get definition display value, because like I said, it stores the value in 3, but we need the display value of this value of 3. So that is stored, I think, in this table. Yeah, that's stored in here, which is metric result. So let's go take a look at that function, which is probably just going down to that table. No, it's not. It's actually getting it from a different place, which maybe this setup is probably easier. Anyway, probably multiple ways to do this, and I probably didn't choose the easiest way, but this is a way. So we go to this table, metric definition, and I go find the metric and the value, and then I'm getting the display value from there, basically. So it's just another table you got to go look up to do that. And sometimes if the choice values are, if the multiple choice values are numbers, then there is no display value, so then you just use the value. So that's multiple choice. Now, multiple choice is also a little different because when we go to add that to the target field or the field in the target table, we have to just append it, right? Have to see if there's already a value in the table, then here, go add it with a comma. Otherwise, add it in there. So that the final result will be a comma separated list of values. Okay, that's enough. This video is going on too long, and if you're still watching, my congratulations or my condolences rather. So that's how this script works. Now, so you basically run that, like I said, and it dumps all the results into that table. Another approach you could do is if you're setting up this survey for the first time and you don't have any results left, but you would like the results to get dumped into that table as you go, you can put the script into a business rule. So I actually did that because when I originally did this for a project, that's the way it worked. So what you do is on the assessment instance table, right, take any one of them, go to like business rules, and this one, copy test results to table. So when do you run this? You run it specifically for your survey. So, and actually this is wrong. I mean, it's not wrong, but it doesn't have to be a before. It should be an after or even an async is fine. And we're saying you can run it on insert and update, although actually you probably only need it on update because the record doesn't finish on insert. So right, define your metric. Your metric type is whatever survey you have, and the state changes to complete. So when the survey instance is complete, then go do this script. And this is the same script. The only difference being, well, actually, I stuck the field map in a system property, but you don't have to do that. You can just put the field map um, in here. And the other difference will be, right, we don't have this because this is going and iterating through all of the instances. But since you're only dealing with one instance, this will actually be current. So anywhere where you see AskGR, uh, you can just replace that with current. So yeah, back here. So yeah, you see I have current taken on, current get value, whatever. So instead of ASSGR, it's current. And that's it. And this will do the same deal. It'll insert it into that table every time somebody answers the survey. All right, I think that's it for me. So that is how you do it.